served as sports writer for the United States Army Stars and Stripes from 1951 through 53. Sports editor for the Wilmington News, a reporter for the Associated Press, sports editor of the Philadelphia Daily News, columnist for the New York Post, and commentator for NBC Sports. He's now HBO's expert analyst, and he has been since 1978. From the Observer category, 2009 Hall of Fame inductee, Larry Merchant.
Thank you, and thank you to Ed Schultz and his Hall of Fame staff for making this celebration possible and for ordering up this sun-kissed day. And thank you to the fighters, old, new, and future inductees who move us and continue to move us with their talent, their will, and their courage. A few shout-outs. First to my wife, Patricia, who may not love boxing as much as I do, but has lived with it for as long as I have, virtually. And to my old leader and boss at HBO, Seth Abraham, and his wife Lynn, thank you for coming. Seth nurtured me and made me feel that if I had it in me to be an executive, he was the executive I would try to be. I also want to make a shout out to my boxing writer, long deceased, from the Philadelphia Daily News. His name was Jack McKinney. He sparred with Sonny Liston before an unprofessional fight and knocked someone named Green out in a round, and covered fights big and small. He once discovered that two men who had had a disagreement on the job were being allowed to separate their differences on the undercard of a club fight. His headline over his first report was, "He called me a lousy bricklayer." The next day's story, his headline was, "He is a lousy bricklayer." Well, the fire department had to come out because there was such an overflow crowd, which suggests a moral there someplace. Timothy Leary, the Harvard psychologist and drug guru, once told me that if you want to study human nature, sit in the center field bleachers at Fenway Park.
Oh boy.
I think sitting at ringside isn't such a bad place to do that either. I've asked myself lately, how did this happen? As a sports writer, I too covered Super Bowls and World Series and Olympics and Masters and Wimbledons and some boxing as well. How did boxing win out for me? Those other sports seem to have managed nicely without me. Is it because my father, at the age of 16, took a job at Madison Square Garden as an usher so that he could watch the fights? And later allowed me to stay up late to listen to the rematch of Lewis and Schmeling? Lewis didn't think that little boy should stay up so late, so he ended the fight in the first round. Was it because my uncle, who had been an amateur, took me to my first fight, and the next day when I read in the newspaper that one of the fighters had, as the phrase was, given up his lunch during the fight, found myself thinking, I've got to get closer to see what's really going on in the ring. Or was it my first big fight? Basilio Robinson, Yankee Stadium, and seated not 20 feet away, two of my heroes, Hemingway and DiMaggio.
Wow.
In truth, the writers were every bit as important to me as the fighters as a youngster. Hines and Parker, Smith and Cannon, Liebling and Lardner, most of whom are enshrined here. We are the storytellers, the myth makers, the muckrakers, the truth tellers. Before television, their words were worth 1,000 pictures. It's wonderful to receive the recognition of one's peers, but as Ruth Gordon said when she received her Academy Award at the age of 82, thank you for your encouragement. I have a fight on July the 18th.